The bullet struck the piano before Naomi Carter finished the final note. Ivory splintered beneath her fingers. The black grand piano screamed as the round buried itself inside the wood, and every glass in the underground lounge seemed to tremble at once. For one suspended second, no one moved. Naomi sat beneath the amber stage light, her hands still hovering above the damaged keys. Beyond the tall windows of the nocturne lounge, Tokyo burned in neon red signs, blue towers, rivers of headlights, shining through the rain. Then the man in the darkest corner rose. Nico Santoro crossed the room before the second shot shattered the window. He reached Naomi in 3 long strides, pulled her from the bench, and covered her with his body as glass rained across the stage. Guests screamed. Chairs overturned. Men in black suits drew weapons from beneath their jackets, surrounding the piano with the precision of soldiers who had rehearsed this moment many times. Naomi felt Nico's hand at the back of her neck, pressing her against the solid wall of his chest. His heart was beating, but not quickly. His breathing remained controlled. Only his eyes had changed. Every night for 6 weeks, he had occupied the same corner table. He always arrived shortly before midnight. He always wore a dark suit that looked too expensive for the quiet hotel lounge. He never drank more than 1 glass of whiskey. He never spoke to the women who approached him, and he never looked away from Naomi when she played. Most guests barely noticed her. They saw a plus-size pianist in a simple black dress performing beneath dim lights while they conducted affairs, negotiated contracts, or quietly lied to their spouses. Nico Santoro noticed everything. The way Naomi flexed her fingers before a difficult piece. The way she closed her eyes during sad passages. The way she smiled at the elderly bartender, even on nights when her tips were poor. Every evening, one of his men placed a folded piece of paper on the piano. The same request. The same unnamed melody Naomi's late father had taught her as a child. Tonight, for the first time she had changed its ending. Now someone was trying to kill her. Nico lifted his head. Seal the hotel. His voice was quiet. But the entire room obeyed. The lounge doors slammed shut. Elevators stopped. Security gates descended across the entrances above them. One of Nico's men approached the stage. Shooter was across the street. Fin him. We already have teams moving. Alive. The man nodded and disappeared. Nico turned back to Naomi. Rainwater and shattered glass glittered behind him. A thin cut marked his cheek, but he did not seem aware of it. His hand remained around the back of her neck. Who taught you that ending? Naomi stared at him. You are holding me like I'm the one who fired the gun. His grip loosened slightly, but he did not release her. Answer me. No. The word landed between them with more force than the bullet. Around the stage, heavily armed men went completely still. Nico's expression did not change. Naomi had seen wealthy men become offended when she refused requests. She had seen executives snap their fingers at servers and hotel guests speak to housekeepers as though they were furniture. But Nico did not look offended. He looked fascinated. You almost died, he said. And that means I belong to you now? His gaze dropped briefly to her mouth before returning to her eyes. No. Then step back. For 3 seconds, neither moved. Then Nico released her. The absence of his body felt colder than it should have. Naomi straightened her dress and looked at the ruined piano. The bullet had destroyed 3 keys. Her hands had begun trembling, but she folded them together so he would not see. Nico saw anyway. He removed his jacket and placed it around her shoulders. I don't need that. You're shaking. I was just shot at, which is why you're coming with me. That sounded less like an invitation and more like a kidnapping. If I were kidnapping you, Miss Carter, we would not still be discussing it. She looked toward the sealed doors. You locked down an entire hotel. To keep you alive. You don't know me. Something dark passed through his eyes. I know more about you than you think. Naomi's fear sharpened. Before she could demand an explanation, Nico bent toward the ruined piano and touched the final damaged key. You changed 4 notes, he said. My mother wrote those notes 22 years ago. The lounge seemed to fall silent around them. Naomi remembered her father sitting beside her at an upright piano in their small apartment in Seattle. Kenji Carter had taught music at a community college and collected songs no one else seemed to know. He had told her the melody came from a woman who had lost everything. He had never mentioned her name. My father taught me, Naomi said. Nico looked at her with a stillness that frightened her more than anger. Kenji Carter? She stopped breathing. You knew him? Nico glanced toward the broken windows. No, but someone killed him because he knew my mother. Nico took Naomi upstairs through a private elevator guarded by 6 men. She considered refusing until she saw the photograph on one of their phones. A man in a gray coat had been captured leaving the rooftop of the building across the street. He carried a dismantled rifle case. On his wrist was a black serpent tattoo. The moment Nico saw it, his expression hardened. The Kuroda mark, he said. Naomi knew the name. Everyone in Tokyo did, even if they pretended otherwise. The Kuroda family owned construction companies, nightclubs, shipping terminals, and enough politicians to make criminal investigations disappear. Rumors connected them to everything from illegal gambling to international weapons trafficking. Nico was supposed to be negotiating peace with them. At least, that was what the newspapers claimed. The elevator opened into a penthouse occupying the hotel's entire top floor. Tokyo spread beyond walls of glass. Rain streaked the windows. The room was elegant, but almost empty. Furnished in dark wood, black leather, and stone. Nothing personal softened it. It looked like a place designed for a man who never expected to remain anywhere long enough to call it home. Nico's men searched Naomi's purse and coat. She objected until they found a small listening device sewn into the lining of her handbag. Naomi stared at it. "That isn't mine." "I know," Nico said. "How?" "Because my people searched your apartment 3 nights ago." She turned slowly. "You broke into my home?" "I had it inspected." "That is a polished way of saying the same thing. 2 Kuroda men entered your building last week. They photographed your door and copied your schedule. And instead of warning me, you had strangers search my belongings. If I had warned you, you would have run. You don't know what I would have done. I know exactly what you would have done. You would have refused protection because accepting it would make you feel controlled." Naomi stepped closer. "You listened to me play for 6 weeks and think that gives you the right to study me?" Nico stood beside a marble table, removing the cufflinks from his shirt as though they were discussing business rather than her violated privacy. "No." "Then why did you do it?" "Because the first night you played that melody, 3 men in this hotel began making calls." The anger in her chest gave way to unease. "Who?" "1 worked for Kuroda. 1 worked for the Italian government. The 3rd worked for my uncle." "Your uncle?" "Vittorio Santoro, my advisor." "And you believe he is watching me?" "I believe everyone is watching you." Naomi laughed once, without humor. "I play piano in a basement lounge. Half the room forgets I exist before I finish a song." "I don't." The words were simple. They should not have felt intimate. Nico walked toward a cabinet and poured water into a glass. He handed it to her instead of taking a drink himself. Naomi accepted it because her mouth had gone dry. On the far wall, she noticed a series of security monitors. One showed the hotel lobby. Another showed the underground garage. A third showed the hallway outside her apartment. Naomi lowered the glass. "You have a camera outside my home." Nico did not deny it. "How long?" 11 days. She crossed the room and struck him across the face. The sound cracked through the penthouse. 2 guards moved immediately. Nico lifted one hand, stopping them. A faint red mark appeared along his cheek. Naomi's palm stung. "I will not apologize," she said. "I didn't ask you to. You watched me. I watched the people watching you. That distinction may matter to you. It does not matter to me." Nico's eyes held hers. "You are right." The admission unsettled her. Men like him were not supposed to admit fault. He moved closer, slowly enough that she could step back. She did not. "I should have told you," he said. "But I will not apologize for keeping you alive. You don't get to protect me by turning my life into a cage." A muscle moved in his jaw. "Then help me find another way." For the first time, the command had disappeared from his voice. Naomi glanced toward the city. "What do the 4 notes mean?" Nico walked to a locked drawer and removed an old photograph. A young woman stood beside a piano in what appeared to be a church. She had dark hair, serious eyes, and one hand resting on the shoulder of a much younger Nico. Beside them stood Naomi's father. Kenji looked exactly as Naomi remembered him, gentle smile, narrow glasses, fingers marked by ink. The date written on the back was 22 years earlier, 3 months before Nico's mother disappeared. "My mother's name was Elena Santoro," Nico said. "She composed music when she wanted to communicate without my father knowing." "Why would she know my father?" "He arranged her compositions. He also helped her hide financial records." "What kind of records?" "The kind that could start a war." Naomi looked again at the picture. "Why did my father never tell me?" "Perhaps he was trying to protect you. By teaching me the code? Perhaps he believed you would need it one day." Nico placed a sheet of music on the table. It was yellowed with age, covered in handwritten notations. Naomi recognized the melody immediately, but the final 4 measures were missing. She sat at the small piano near the window and played the altered ending. Nico stood behind her. He did not touch her, but she felt his presence along every inch of her back. When the last note faded, one of the symbols written beneath the staff made sense. "It isn't a musical instruction," Naomi whispered. "It's a train line." Nico leaned closer. His hand settled on the piano beside hers. "Which one?" "The Marunouchi line. These numbers are station intervals." Their eyes met. His face was only inches from hers. For one dangerous moment, neither looked away. Then Nico's phone rang. He straightened and answered. His expression became colder with every word. When the call ended, he looked toward Naomi. "The shooter is dead. You said you wanted him alive. So did the man who found him first." "Who found him?" Nico picked up his jacket. "My uncle." They reached Tokyo Station shortly before dawn. Nico wanted Naomi surrounded by guards. She refused. "An army will attract attention. You already have attention. Then stop making me look like the center of a military invasion." They compromised on 2 men walking 20 feet behind them. The station was nearly empty. Fluorescent light reflected off polished floors while cleaning crews moved silently through the corridors. Naomi followed the intervals hidden in the music until they reached a row of old coin lockers near a closed platform. The code opened locker 214. Inside was a wooden music box. Nothing else. Nico examined it without touching. "Do you recognize it?" Naomi asked. "My mother kept one beside her bed." "Was it this one?" "I was 9 when she disappeared." For the first time, uncertainty entered his face. Naomi lifted the box carefully. A painted ballerina stood beneath the lid. When she turned the key, the same unnamed melody began to play. The final notes were different again. Nico watched her listening. "What is it?" "It's another location." Before she could explain, every light in the corridor went out. Nico seized her wrist. Down. A burst of gunfire tore through the lockers. Metal screamed. Nico pulled Naomi behind a concrete pillar as his men returned fire from the opposite side of the corridor. The darkness filled with muzzle flashes. Naomi pressed herself against the wall. Nico stood in front of her, shielding her completely. A bullet struck the pillar near his shoulder. He did not flinch. "Nico, stay behind me." One attacker emerged from the darkness. Naomi saw him before Nico did. She grabbed the metal lid of a trash container and slammed it against the man's arm. His weapon struck the floor. Nico moved with terrifying efficiency. He drove the attacker into the wall, disarmed him, and struck him once. The man collapsed. Nico turned on Naomi. "I told you to stay behind me. And I told you I am not furniture. This is not the moment to prove a point. I just prevented him from shooting you." His eyes burned with anger. Not at her. For here. One of Nico's guards approached. The others escaped. Nico looked at the unconscious attacker. "Take him." The guard hesitated. "There's a problem. He's one of ours." Silence filled the corridor. Nico crouched and pulled back the man's collar. A small silver medallion rested against his neck. The Santoro crest. Naomi understood immediately. This wasn't Kuroda. "No," Nico said. His face became emotionless. "This order came from my family." The music box led them to an abandoned Catholic church in Yokohama. By noon, rain had become fog. The old church stood between warehouses near the harbor, its stone walls blackened by decades of salt and neglect. Most of the stained glass windows had been boarded over. Nico entered first. Naomi followed him down the center aisle. Dust floated through pale shafts of light. A ruined organ stood near the altar. Candles that should not have been burning flickered beneath a statue of the Virgin Mary. Someone had been there recently. Naomi approached the organ and played the notes from the music box. A wooden panel beneath the keyboard opened. Inside was a reel of magnetic tape and a photograph of Elena Santoro holding a newborn baby. On the back, someone had written one sentence. "The first son was never your father's." Nico stared at it. Naomi could feel him withdrawing into himself. "Is that you?" she asked gently. "I don't know. Your mother may have been trying to tell you." "My mother lied professionally." The words were harsh, but the pain beneath them was unmistakable. Nico took the tape and turned away. Naomi caught his sleeve. He looked down at her hand. She released him slowly. "You don't have to pretend that doesn't hurt." "I don't pretend. You turn everything into anger because anger is easier to control." His gaze sharpened. "You have known me for less than 2 months. I have watched you listen to the same sad song every night, as though it was the only thing holding you together." His expression changed. Naomi stepped closer. "You come to the lounge after midnight because you can't sleep. You sit in the darkest corner because you don't want anyone to see what the music does to you. And when the melody ends, you wait exactly 30 seconds before leaving, Because you need time to become the man everyone fears again. Nico said nothing. She had never seen silence look so exposed. You noticed, he said at last. I notice people. It is what happens when most people don't notice you. His eyes moved slowly over her face. I noticed you the first night. The distance between them disappeared. Nico raised one hand toward her cheek. He stopped before touching her. Naomi could feel the heat of his fingers. Why did you stop? She whispered. Because if I touch you now, I will not do it gently. Her breath caught. Maybe I didn't ask for gentle. Something broke in his composure. He leaned closer. A gun clicked behind them. Nico turned instantly. Vittorio Santoro stood at the end of the aisle with 4 men. He was older than Nico, silver-haired and impeccably dressed. His expression held the patience of a beloved uncle arriving to correct a reckless child. Step away from the woman, Vittorio said. Nico moved in front of Naomi. You sent men to Tokyo Station. I sent men to retrieve property belonging to our family. They fired at her. They were told she was expendable. The air inside the church changed. Nico's voice became dangerously soft. Say that again. Vittorio smiled. There is the boy I remember. Nico drew his weapon. So did Vittorio's men. Naomi stood directly behind Nico, close enough to feel the tension in his back. Vittorio looked at her. Miss Carter, my nephew has likely told you that your father was a brave man. He has told me very little. That is Nico's preferred form of intimacy. Nico's finger tightened near the trigger. What do you want? The tape. The music box. And her. No. Vittorio sighed. You are negotiating an alliance with the Kuroda family. Hundreds of millions of dollars, political protection, peace across 2 continents, and you are prepared to jeopardize everything for a lounge pianist? Nico did not look away from him. Yes. The answer came without hesitation. Naomi's heartbeat stumbled. Vittorio's expression hardened. Then you are more like your mother than I feared. A shot exploded from the balcony. One of Vittorio's men fell. Kuroda soldiers entered through the side doors. The church erupted into chaos. Nico seized Naomi around the waist and pulled her behind the altar. Gunfire tore through the pews. Wood splintered. Candles fell across the stone floor. Stay here, he ordered. No. Naomi, I am not losing sight of you. He looked at her. Even surrounded by violence, the words affected him. Nico removed a second weapon from his ankle and placed it in her hand. Have you ever fired one? No. Then don't unless someone reaches you. He showed her how to hold it, wrapping his hands around hers. His face was close. His voice remained calm. Breathe before you pull the trigger. You say that as if breathing is easy right now. His thumb moved over her wrist. For me, Naomi. The words were almost lost beneath the gunfire. She inhaled. Nico kissed her forehead once. Then he rose and stepped into the fight. They escaped through a tunnel beneath the church and reached a safe house in Hakone after dark. Snow had begun falling in the mountains. The house stood near a frozen lake, hidden behind cedar trees. Inside, a fire burned beneath a stone chimney, while Nico's remaining men secured the property. Naomi discovered blood on Nico's shirt. He had been hit along the ribs. It passed through, he said when she demanded to see the wound. That does not mean you are fine. I have had worse. That sentence is not medical care. She made him sit at the kitchen table. Nico removed his shirt without argument. The sight of him momentarily stole her words. Scars crossed his chest and shoulders, some thin and pale, others deep enough to suggest violence she could not imagine. The newest injury was clean but painful. Naomi washed it and wrapped a bandage around his torso. Nico watched her the entire time. What? She asked. No one speaks to me the way you do. Maybe everyone around you is too frightened. They should be. I'm frightened too. His gaze lowered. But you stay. Naomi teed the bandage. I haven't decided why. His hand closed gently around her wrist. Do not confuse what happened in that church with safety. Vittorio will come for you again. Because of the code. Because of me. She looked at him. You think you are the most dangerous thing in every room. I usually am. Not tonight. Snow struck the windows. For several seconds, all she heard was the fire and Nico's breathing. He released her wrist. Naomi found an old piano in the sitting room. It was slightly out of tune, but playable. She sat and began the melody. Nico remained at the table. At first, he did not move. Then his shoulders slowly lowered. She played the first variation, then the second. When she reached the altered ending, he closed his eyes. Naomi continued until the room became quiet. When she finished, Nico was asleep. He had not even made it to the bed. The most feared man she had ever met sat barefoot beside the fire. his head tilted against the chair, one hand resting near the weapon on the table. In sleep, he looked younger. L'Honnelier. Naomi took a blanket from the sofa and placed it over him. His hand caught hers. His eyes opened instantly. For a moment, he did not know where he was. Then he recognized her. "You stayed," he murmured. "Yes." His fingers tightened around hers. "Play again." It was the first request he had made without authority behind it. Naomi returned to the piano. She played until dawn. The next morning, Nico's people restored power to an old tape recorder. Elena Santoro's voice filled the room. "If you are hearing this, Vittorio has begun the final stage." Nico stood completely still. Naomi watched the color leave his face. Elena built a hidden archive containing evidence against the Santoro and Kuroda organizations. The recording continued. Murder contracts. Bribed officials. Stolen inheritances. Names of judges, ministers, police commanders, and businessmen. A second voice spoke faintly in the background. "Kenji Carter." Naomi covered her mouth. Her father sounded younger, but she recognized him immediately. "We need another copy," Kenji said. "No," Elena answered. "One archive is already too dangerous." The tape crackled. "If my son has found this, tell him I am sorry, but he cannot inherit the Santoro empire. No one can. The family must end with him." The recording stopped. Nico turned away. Naomi approached the machine and rewound the final section. There was a sound beneath Elena's words. A sequence of piano notes. Another code. "It leads to the Hotel Kage," Naomi said. "The hotel where you work. Not the lounge. Somewhere higher." Nico looked toward her. "The rooftop." Before they could speak further, his phone rang. A member of his security team delivered the news. The media had received photographs of Nico and Naomi leaving the church together. Headlines were already calling Naomi his secret mistress. Her face was spreading across Japanese television. The hotel had terminated her contract. Police were searching her apartment. Worse, an anonymous source had accused her of helping Nico smuggle financial documents into Japan. Naomi lowered herself onto the piano bench. "My career is over. I'll buy the hotel." She looked at him in disbelief. "That is your answer to everything." "It is an efficient answer." "No, Nico. You cannot purchase every part of my life that becomes inconvenient. I can protect you. You can surround me. That is not always the same thing." His jaw tightened. "What would you have me do? Tell the truth." "To whom?" "To me." Silence followed. Naomi stood. "When did you first learn who my father was?" "The night you played the melody." "That is not what I asked." Nico looked toward the snow-covered lake. 3 months ago." Her chest tightened. "You knew before you came to the lounge." "Yes. You sat there every night pretending to be a stranger. I needed to know whether you were involved." "Involved in what?" "My mother's disappearance. The archive. Vittorio's plans." Naomi stepped back. Every private glance, every silent evening, every request suddenly changed meaning. "You were investigating me. At first. And later?" His eyes met hers. "Later, I was trying to stop." She hated how much that answer hurt. "You let me believe the music mattered." "It did. To you or to your investigation?" Nico moved toward her. Naomi lifted one hand. "Don't." He stopped instantly. That obedience was almost worse. "My father is dead," she said. "My home was searched. I was fired. The world thinks I am your criminal lover, and the only person I thought might understand what is happening has been lying since the night he entered my lounge. I never lied about wanting you alive. You simply lied about everything surrounding it." His face closed. The cold Mafia boss returned because the wounded man had no idea how to remain visible. Naomi recognized the transformation. This time, she refused to comfort him. "I'm leaving." "No. You do not get to decide. Vittorio will find you." "Then give me protection without imprisoning me. There is no safe place beyond my reach." "You really believe that is romantic, don't you?" "I believe it is true." Naomi walked toward the front door. Nico's men looked to him. He said nothing. She waited for the order to stop her. It never came. Nico stood beside the window, motionless, as she left the house. But when Naomi entered the waiting SUV, she saw his reflection in the glass. He looked like a man watching the only light in his life disappear. Nico arranged a private apartment for Naomi in central Tokyo. He did not enter it. He stationed guards downstairs and instructed them to obey her, not him. For 2 days, Naomi heard nothing from him. The silence should have relieved her. Instead, she found herself waking at midnight, wondering whether he was sitting alone somewhere, unable to sleep. On the 3rd evening, A package arrived. Inside was her father's old metronome. Naomi had not seen it since his death. Beneath it was a note in Nico's handwriting. I found this in Vittorio's Tokyo residence. I did not open the compartment. There was no signature. Naomi pressed the hidden latch on the bottom. A small key fell into her palm. Alongside it was a photograph of her father standing with Elena Santoro and a third person whose face had been torn away. On the back, Kenji had written, "The archive does not belong to the families. It belongs to the survivors." Naomi studied the key. Then she heard music from the apartment above. The unnamed melody. Someone was playing it slowly, incorrectly, repeating the same measure again and again. Her guards did not answer their phones. The lights went out. Naomi moved toward the door, but it opened before she reached it. A woman entered. She was in her early 60s, elegant and straight-backed, with dark hair streaked in silver. Naomi recognized her from the photograph. "Elena Santoro. You have my son's eyes on you," Elena said. Naomi gripped the key. "You're supposed to be dead. So are many useful women. Did you send the melody?" "I wrote it." "Did you use my father?" Pain flickered across Elena's face. "Kenji was my friend. He died because of this." "Yes." The honesty was merciless. Naomi stepped backward. Elena looked around the apartment. "Nico believes Vittorio wants the archive for power. He is wrong. Vittorio wants to erase it, because it proves Nico is not a Santoro by blood." The photograph of the baby. "Nico was my son, but his father was not Carlo Santoro. His father was a prosecutor who tried to destroy the family. Does Nico know? He suspects. Why lead him toward the archive? Because once the families learn the truth, they will turn against him. He will be forced to choose between the empire and the evidence. You want him to destroy his own family. I want him to end what should never have existed." Naomi shook her head. "You could have gone to him. My son does not trust love. He trusts leverage. And you think manipulating him through me will heal that?" Elena's gaze sharpened. "You are not here to heal him." "No, but neither are you." For the first time, Elena looked surprised. Naomi stepped closer. "You disappeared when he was 9. You left him with men who taught him that affection was weakness. Then you watched from the shadows, while he became exactly what they wanted. Now you expect him to destroy his life because you placed instructions inside a song. You care for him. I don't know what I feel. You do. That is why Vittorio chose you." Naomi froze. "Elena." The window shattered. Smoke filled the apartment. A hand grabbed Naomi from behind. She fought, driving her elbow backward, but a cloth covered her mouth. Through the haze, she saw Elena draw a weapon. Then everything went dark. Nico learned Naomi was gone 12 minutes later. The man delivering the news had worked for him for 9 years. He had seen Nico order executions without raising his voice. He had watched him negotiate during bomb threats and sit calmly through ambushes. He had never seen him lose control. Nico smashed the conference table with a single sweep of his arm. Glass, phones, and documents crashed across the floor. "Fin here." His commanders moved immediately. Nico grabbed the man nearest him. "If Vittorio touches her..." His voice failed. That frightened the room more than shouting would have. Nico released him and turned toward the windows. Across Tokyo, the proposed Santoro-Kuroda Alliance Gala had begun at the Hotel Kage. Politicians, executives, and crime leaders from 2 continents were gathering beneath crystal chandeliers to witness Nico sign the agreement. Vittorio expected him there. That meant Naomi was already inside the hotel. Nico looked at the contract, resting inside a leather case. The alliance had taken 4 years to negotiate. It would make him one of the most powerful men in Europe and Asia. It would also give Vittorio direct access to the Kuroda shipping network. Nico picked up the contract and carried it to the fireplace. His advisor stepped forward. "Boss, if you burn that, both families will consider it an act of war." Nico held the pages over the flame. They took her. The contract caught fire. War began when they entered her apartment. He watched 4 years of power turn to ash. Then he called every soldier still loyal to him. "Take the hotel." Naomi regained consciousness inside the nocturne lounge. She was seated at the repaired grand piano. The bullet-damaged keys had been replaced. Vittorio stood beside the bar, speaking with Chairman Akira Kuroda. Armed men lined the walls. Above them, the Alliance Gala continued as though nothing were wrong. Music, laughter, and applause drifted through the ceiling. Elena sat in a chair near the stage, one side of her face bruised but her expression defiant. Vittorio approached Naomi. "You will play the melody." "No." He smiled. "Nico said you were difficult. Nico says many things. He burned the alliance agreement 15 minutes ago. Naomi's heart lurched. Why? Vittorio looked amused. Because he has mistaken obsession for love. The lounge doors opened. A hotel employee was dragged inside. Mr. Sato, the elderly bartender, who had always saved Naomi tea after her final performance. Vittorio pressed a weapon against his shoulder. You will play, he said, or innocent people will suffer for your pride. Naomi looked at Elena. Elena gave the smallest shake of her head. Do not cooperate. But Naomi was not willing to sacrifice a helpless man for a war he did not understand. She placed her hands on the keys. What ending? The final one. I don't know it. Vittorio set Kenji's metronome on the piano. You have the key. Naomi understood. The metronome key opened something inside the piano. She inserted it beneath the keyboard. A hidden panel unlocked, revealing a small digital drive and an old transmitter. The archive had been beneath her hands every night. Her father had hidden it inside the instrument years earlier, trusting that the ordinary lounge pianist no one noticed would become its guardian. Naomi looked at Elena. You knew. I knew the hotel, Elena said. Not the piano. Vittorio seized the drive. At that moment, the lights above them flickered. The elevator stopped. A heavy impact shook the doors. Vittorio turned. The doors exploded inward. Nico entered through the smoke. He wore a black suit without a tie. Blood marked one sleeve, and his eyes held nothing human for anyone except the woman at the piano. His men poured into the lounge behind him. Gunfire erupted. Nico crossed the room directly toward Naomi. He ignored Kuroda's soldiers. He ignored the shattered glass and falling lights. A shot struck the piano. Naomi flinched. Nico reached her and covered her with his body, one hand closing over hers on the keys. The world became noise and smoke. His mouth was near her ear. Are you hurt? No. Are you certain? Yes. Only then did he breathe. Nico lifted his head and looked at Vittorio. His uncle held the drive in one hand and Elena at gunpoint with the other. Choose, Vittorio said. Your mother, the woman, or the empire. Nico remained between Naomi and every weapon in the room. I already chose. Vittorio's smile faded. You would destroy the Santoro name for her? Nico looked back at Naomi. No. Her chest tightened. Then he continued. I would destroy it because she taught me a name is not the same thing as a soul. Naomi stared at him. Vittorio raised his weapon. Elena moved first. She drove her shoulder into him. The gun fired. Nico pushed Naomi beneath the piano and turned. The bullet struck him high in the chest. He fell against the keys. The piano released a broken, thunderous chord. Nico. Naomi caught him before he hit the floor. Blood spread beneath his shirt. His eyes found hers. Play, he whispered. What? The transmitter. Naomi looked at the open compartment. Her father's note returned to her. The archive belongs to the survivors. She understood. The melody was not merely a map. It was a password. Naomi placed one hand over Nico's wound and reached for the keys with the other. Vittorio lunged toward her. Mr. Sato struck him with a bottle. Elena grabbed the fallen weapon. Nico's men closed around the stage. Naomi played. The first movement unlocked the archive. The second connected the transmitter to every screen in the hotel. Upstairs, the gala's enormous projection walls went black. Then names appeared. Politicians, judges, shipping executives, mafia commanders, murder orders signed by Vittorio Santoro, records proving he had arranged Elena's disappearance, Kenji Carter's death, and the war with the Kuroda family. Guests began screaming. Phones recorded everything. Naomi reached the final measure. One sequence would release the entire archive to international authorities. Another would erase it. A third, hidden variation would send only the evidence against the guilty while encrypting the identities of witnesses and innocent families. It was the ending her father had taught her. The ending she had played the night the first bullet struck the piano. Naomi finished the melody. The transmitter activated. Vittorio's empire collapsed in less than 60 seconds. He looked around the lounge as Kuroda's own men lowered their weapons. His allies stepped away from him. Nico, pale and struggling to remain conscious, watched Naomi from the floor. Vittorio raised his weapon one final time. Nico fired first. The shot echoed through the lounge. Vittorio fell. Silence followed. Naomi dropped to her knees beside Nico. His breathing was shallow. She pressed both hands against the wound. Stay with me. His eyes remained on her face. You came for the music, she said, fighting tears. So listen to me now. His fingers touched her wrist. I came for you. You lied to me. Yes. You watched me. Yes. You tried to control everything. I know. You do not get to die before I decide whether to forgive you. The faintest trace of a smile touched his mouth. That sounds like an order. It is. His eyes closed. Naomi bent over him. Nico. The medical team rushed through the lounge. As they lifted him onto a stretcher, his hand slipped from hers. For the first time since meeting him, Naomi understood exactly what he had felt every night in the darkest corner. The terror of losing the only thing that could quiet the darkness. Nico remained unconscious for 3 days. The hospital occupied a private tower overlooking Tokyo Bay. Police surrounded the building, while Santoro soldiers controlled the upper floors. Naomi stayed beside his bed. No one asked her to leave. On the second night, Elena entered the room. She stood near the window and watched her son sleeping beneath white sheets and medical lines. I imagine seeing him again thousands of times, she said. Did any version involve telling him the truth? No. That is the problem. Elena looked at Naomi. You speak to me the same way you speak to him. Neither of you hears the word no often enough. A sad smile touched Elena's face. He will offer you everything. I don't want everything. What do you want? Naomi looked at Nico. I want him to understand that protecting someone is not the same as possessing them. He may never learn. Then he will lose me. Elena's expression became serious. And if he does learn? Naomi did not answer. On the third morning, Nico opened his eyes while she was playing the melody on the small keyboard beside his bed. His voice was rough. You changed the ending. Naomi stopped. You noticed. I always notice. She stood but did not approach. Nico looked around the room. Vittorio? Dead. The archive? Released selectively. Your family's victims are protected. The officials and commanders involved are being investigated. My mother? Alive. Complicated. Staying on another floor. His eyes closed briefly. The alliance is gone. You burned it. I would do it again. That is not the reassuring statement you think it is. Nico looked at her. I had cameras removed from your building. Good. I transferred the hotel lounge into your name. No. It has already been done. Nico, you lost your job because of me, and buying the room where I worked does not repair that. He was quiet. Naomi moved closer. You cannot turn guilt into gifts. What am I supposed to do with it? Live with it. Learn from it. Change. His face tightened as though she had asked for something more painful than his empire. Will you stay while I do that? Naomi looked down at him. I will not stay because you are injured. I know. I will not become another thing you guard behind locked doors. I know. You will ask before placing protection around me. His jaw moved. That will be difficult. Then practice. Nico held out his hand. He did not reach for her. He waited. Naomi looked at it. Then she placed her fingers in his. His eyes closed. For the first time, the gesture did not feel like possession. It felt like permission. 4 months later, the Nocturne Lounge reopened under a new name. The Carter Room. Naomi had refused Nico's offer to own the entire hotel, but she accepted ownership of the lounge after negotiating a contract that gave her complete independence. She hired musicians who had been ignored by larger venues. Young composers performed beside elderly jazz players. Hotel workers received the same tables and service as wealthy guests. The repaired grand piano remained at the center of the stage. One damaged key had been preserved beneath glass, a reminder that the melody had once changed everything. Nico did not attend opening night. He had spent the previous months dismantling parts of the Santoro organization, transferring legal businesses into independent trusts, and using seized accounts to compensate families harmed by Vittorio's network. He had not become harmless. Men still lowered their voices when he entered a room. Black SUVs still followed him through the city. His enemies still disappeared from positions of power with alarming efficiency. But he asked before placing guards near Naomi. He knocked before entering her apartment. And when she said no, he learned to remain still. Shortly before midnight, Naomi sat at the piano. The lounge doors opened. Nico entered alone. He wore a black coat damp from the rain. A faint scar remained above his chest, where the bullet had struck him. Conversations quieted. Every powerful guest in the room watched the former head of the Santoro Empire cross toward the woman at the piano. Nico stopped beside the stage. He did not take his old table in the shadows. Naomi looked at him. You're late. I was uncertain whether I was invited. You own half the building. Not this room. The answer pleased her more than she allowed him to see. Nico placed a small velvet box on the piano. Inside was Elena Santoro's silver ring. Naomi looked from the ring to him. Is this a proposal? No. Half the room appeared disappointed. Nico continued. It belonged to a woman who believed love could only survive in secrecy. I do not want that for us. Naomi's breath caught. He lowered himself onto one knee. The lounge became completely silent. His soldiers stood near the entrance, staring in open disbelief. Nico Santoro had forced ministers to wait outside his office. He had refused to bow before crime, families, judges, and kings. Now he knelt before a plus-size pianist the world had once overlooked. I do not deserve your trust yet, he said. I may spend years earning it. Naomi's eyes burned. I will not ask you to belong to me. I am asking whether I may continue belonging beside you. She studied the man before her. He was still dangerous, still controlling by instinct, still capable of frightening things. But he was no longer hiding behind the belief that power could replace vulnerability. Stand up, she said. Nico obeyed. She touched the scar near his collar. You may stay. His eyes darkened with emotion. For tonight? For the next song. And after that? Naomi smiled. You will have to ask again. Nico's hand moved toward her waist. He stopped before touching her. May I? She answered by pulling him closer. Their kiss began softly, with all the restraint he had once believed impossible. Then his arm closed around her, firm and protective, while Naomi's fingers curled into the front of his coat. The room disappeared. There was only rain against the windows, the warmth of his body, and the sound of a city continuing beyond them. When they parted, Nico rested his forehead against hers. Play the melody, he whispered. Naomi returned to the piano. Nico sat beside her on the bench, not in the shadows and not across the room. Beside her, she placed her hands on the keys. The first notes were the same ones her father had taught her. The same notes Elena had used to hide a war. The same melody Nico had once needed in order to sleep. But Naomi changed the ending again. This time, it contained no coordinates, no warnings, no secrets. It became something new, soft but not weak, intimate but not imprisoned, dangerous only because both of them had chosen to remain. Nico listened without closing his eyes. He no longer needed to escape into the music. He only needed to know she was there. Outside, black vehicles waited beneath the Tokyo rain. Powerful men watched the hotel from across the street. Somewhere beyond the city, enemies were already rebuilding what had been destroyed. But inside the Carter room, the feared Mafia Boss reached beneath the piano and took Naomi's hand. He did not command. He did not claim. He simply waited until her fingers closed around his. And for the first time in his life, Nico Santoro understood that love was not the silence after a war. It was the one person who could hear every violent thing inside him and still demand that he become more than it.